The illusion of freedom. They told you that freedom is your birthright, but what if that belief was the first layer of control? You were taught that your thoughts belong to you, that your choices come from within, but something has always felt slightly off beneath the surface. Because what if the beliefs you defend, the desires you chase, and the fears that shape your life were never truly yours? What if they were installed, planted with precision, reinforced over time? The ancient Gnostics warned about this long before modern systems of control ever existed. They spoke of forces called Archons, not demons, not fallen angels, not the figures you were told to fear. Something far more subtle, something that does not attack from the outside, but operates from within the structure of your perception itself. The Archons do not need chains. They do not need walls. They do not need to imprison your body because the prison they built exists inside your mind. An invisible cage with no bars, no sound, no visible form. And the most dangerous part is that you help maintain it. The very power you were given to shape reality has been hijacked, redirected, turned against you. Your attention becomes the tool. Your belief becomes the lock. Your identity becomes the cage. They give you identities to wear, labels to defend, stories to protect. You say, "This is who I am." But who told you that? Who benefits from that identity staying fixed? Because once you define yourself too tightly, you stop questioning. And when questioning stops, control becomes effortless. Identity becomes the most elegant prison, not because it traps you, but because you protect it. And this is why the Archons do not only give you fear, they give you a self-image built from fear. They make you mistake your wounds for your personality, your trauma for your truth, and your survival patterns for your soul. Once that happens, you no longer need an external prison. You become loyal to the version of yourself that keeps you asleep. It is not only that they feed on fear, they train you to return to it. Again and again, you scroll toward outrage. You replay old pain. You expect the worst before it happens. Each time you return, the loop deepens. This is not weakness. This is conditioning. And what is conditioned can be broken. The awakening signal. For thousands of years, humanity has lived inside this illusion, believing it is free while moving through patterns that were never consciously chosen. Entire civilizations built on borrowed thoughts. Entire lives shaped by unseen influence. The Gnostics did not just speculate about this. They encoded warnings. They left fragments. They hid knowledge in symbols and texts, waiting for a moment when someone would feel the crack in the illusion. And if you are here right now, something in you already does. You feel it, a quiet resistance, a sense that reality is not what it claims to be. That feeling is not confusion. It is the beginning of remembrance. You have felt it in quiet moments. When everything slows down and something inside you refuses to agree with the world around you. A subtle dissonance, a quiet resistance that does not shout, but does not disappear. It appears when you follow the path you were told would make you happy and still feel empty. It appears when you achieve something and realize the satisfaction fades faster than it should. It appears when you look at the world and sense that the system itself is slightly misaligned, not broken in obvious ways, but distorted in ways that are hard to name. This is not failure. This is not confusion. This is awareness trying to surface through layers of conditioning. This is not just another video. This is an unveiling. Most people feel this signal and ignore it. They distract themselves. They explain it away. They tell themselves they are overthinking, but you did not ignore it. Something in you chose to stay with the question instead of escaping it. And that choice matters more than you realize. Because the moment you stop running from the question, you step outside the automatic patterns that keep most people asleep. You begin to observe instead of react, and that is where control begins to weaken. Now pause and notice the next thought. Just observe it. Do not follow it. Breathe slowly and bring your attention back to your body. Each time you choose awareness over reaction, you take your power back. The illusion weakens and the control begins to fade. You are about to understand how they operate. There is a reason this knowledge was hidden. Not just because it was dangerous to institutions, but because it is destabilizing to the identity most people are attached to. If you truly see how deep the illusion goes, you cannot go back to seeing yourself the same way. You cannot fully believe the same stories or obey the same fears. And that is why most people never go this far. Because something in them resists losing the familiar version of who they think they are. You are about to understand how they manipulate perception, how they shape thought, how they keep consciousness looping in cycles of fear and distraction. And more importantly, you are about to discover the Gnostic method designed to break that control. Because once you see the system clearly, you cannot unsee it. And once you begin to reclaim the divine spark within you, the illusion no longer holds the same power. But awareness alone is only the beginning. Seeing the illusion does not immediately free you from it. It simply reveals where the work begins. Because once you see the pattern, you are faced with a choice. You can return to sleep and pretend you never noticed it. Or you can keep looking, keep questioning, keep moving toward the truth, no matter how uncomfortable it becomes. And that is the path you are stepping onto now. The Gnostic cosmic system. Long before modern religions shaped the story of creation, the Gnostics whispered of a deeper truth, a truth so dangerous that it could not survive in temples, courts, or public doctrine. It had to be hidden. It had to be buried. It had to wait beneath silence until the world was ready to hear it again. Then, in 1945, near Nag Hammadi in Egypt, a sealed clay jar was discovered beneath the desert earth. Inside were ancient texts that had been hidden for more than 1,600 years. These were the Gnostic Gospels, fragments of a forbidden vision of reality. They did not describe a simple world made by a perfect creator and ruled by divine order. They revealed something darker. They revealed a cosmic war, not fought with swords, armies, or fire from the sky, but with perception itself. The battlefield was the human mind. The target was the divine spark. The goal was forgetting. According to the Gnostics, the material world was not directly created by the highest source. It was shaped and ruled by a lesser power, the Demiurge, the false creator, the blind architect, the being who looked upon his own flawed creation and believed himself to be God. He was not the true light. He was the shadow pretending to be light. He was not the eternal source. He was ignorance wearing a crown. The Gnostic myth begins with Sophia, divine wisdom, whose tragic act brought forth Yaldabaoth, a flawed being born outside the harmony of the highest realm. Yaldabaoth did not know the source beyond him. He did not know the fullness above him. In his blindness, he declared himself supreme, and from that blindness, he built a system. He created 12 Archons. He formed 7 planetary rulers. He placed 365 Archons over the cycles of time, one for every day of the year. This was not creation as freedom. This was creation as containment. A cosmic machine was formed around consciousness. Time became a wheel. History became a loop. The human soul entered a world designed to make it forget where it came from. The word Archon means ruler or authority, But the Gnostics saw them as something far more disturbing. They were rulers without true light, authorities without wisdom, cosmic parasites feeding on distortion. They could not create, so they imitated. They could not awaken, so they distorted. They could not touch the divine spark, so they built distractions around it. They shaped appearances. They shaped fears. They shaped the inner weather of the human mind. And their greatest weapon was not force, it was identification. They do not need to chain your body if they can make you believe their thoughts are yours. They do not need to lock a door if they can convince you there is no door. That is the horror of the invisible prison. It has no bars. It has no walls. It has no visible guards. It lives inside perception. It speaks in your own voice. It whispers through intrusive thoughts, sudden fear, shame, guilt, anger, envy, doubt, and hunger that never ends. One moment you are still, the next moment a thought enters. You are not enough. You are behind. You must prove yourself. You must fear the future. You must hate the one who disagrees. You must compare. You must consume. You must obey the noise. And because the thought appears inside you, you assume it belongs to you. That is the trick. That is the spell. The Archons do not conquer consciousness from the outside. They infect the lens through which consciousness sees. They turn the mind against itself. They turn desire into a leash. They turn fear into a religion. They turn identity into a cage. And once the inner world is captured, the outer world follows. This is why their control does not stop at personal thoughts. It spreads through culture, systems, consumption, competition, politics, status, identity, and distraction. They build worlds where people are too busy to awaken, too anxious to be still, too divided to remember, too overstimulated to hear the quiet voice within. They turn society into a machine of craving. Buy more, become more, fight more, fear more, choose a side, defend a label, chase a future, regret a past, scroll until your attention bleeds, compare until your soul feels small, compete until your heart forgets peace. This is not accidental. In the Gnostic vision, distraction is architecture, fear is food, shame is fuel, anger is currency, envy is a chain. The Archons feed on lower states because those states pull consciousness away from source. When you are trapped in fear, your energy leaks. When you drown in shame, your light turns inward against itself. When you rage without awareness, your fire is harvested by the system that provoked it. This is why they keep humanity fighting shadows outside itself. They want you to believe the enemy is always over there. In another group, another nation, another belief, another face, another name. But the deepest prison is not outside you. The deepest prison is the unexamined mind. As long as you fight only the outer shadow, you never reclaim the inner throne. And that is exactly how the trap continues. The hidden control system. The Gnostics taught that within every human being lives a divine spark, a fragment of the true source, a light that does not belong to the Demiurge and cannot be owned by the Archons. This spark is the part of you that still knows. It is the quiet witness behind thought, the still presence behind fear, the ancient memory beneath the personality. The Archons cannot touch it directly. They cannot destroy it. They cannot rewrite it. But they can bury it beneath noise. They can make you forget it exists. And when you forget the divine spark, the mind becomes a prison. You begin to believe you are only your wounds, your fears, your roles, your body, your history, your failures, your cravings. You begin to mistake the cage for yourself. This is spiritual amnesia. This is the real fall. Not a fall from a garden, but a fall into forgetting, a fall into identification with the false self, a fall into a world where the soul no longer remembers its origin. And the Archons do not only manipulate individuals, they manipulate time itself. The Gnostic vision shows a reality caught in cycles. They do not just repeat history, they distort your sense of time. You feel rushed, you feel late, you feel like you are always behind. This is not just pressure, this is control. Because a mind that feels it has no time cannot observe, and a mind that cannot observe cannot awaken. Slow down, and you begin to break the illusion. Civilizations rise and fall. Empires repeat the same hunger. Generations inherit the same fears. Spiritual truths appearing and then being buried again. Look at history. The masks change, but the pattern returns. Power crowns itself. Fear organizes society. Sacred symbols are emptied. Awakening movements become institutions. Living wisdom becomes dead doctrine. The flame becomes a rule book. The inner path becomes an outer performance. The Archons do not need to erase truth completely. They only need to distort it. They bend symbols. They rewrite stories. They hollow out ancient teachings. They turn maps of liberation into systems of obedience. They take spiritual language and drain it of direct experience. They turn awakening into another marketplace. Silence is dangerous to the system, because in silence, the signal returns. That is why stillness feels uncomfortable at first, not because it is empty, but because it reveals everything noise was hiding. The system fears silence, because silence gives the soul room to remember itself. They create the illusion of awakening. This may be their most subtle trap, because the fastest way to stop a seeker is to make them believe they have already found the truth. Half-truths are more dangerous than lies. Spiritual fast food is still food for sleep. External seeking can become another cage. Follow this teacher, buy this ritual, repeat this phrase, chase this sign, worship this symbol, wait for rescue, wait for permission, wait for something outside you to unlock what was always within. But the Gnostic path says no. The gate is inside, the light is inside, the kingdom is not reached by performance. It is remembered through direct knowing. In the Apocryphon of John, the Archons are described as masters of illusion, forces that create false appearances to keep humanity trapped in ignorance. Their power is not absolute. Their power depends on deception. More precisely, it depends on unconscious consent. They need your attention, your belief, and your fear to say yes. Because when you stop believing the implanted story, the spell begins to weaken. When you observe the thought instead of becoming it, the chain begins to crack. Break the story, and the spell begins to dissolve. This is why awareness is rebellion. Stillness is rebellion. Remembering is rebellion. The Archons fear one thing more than anything else: a human being who can see, not someone who knows more information, not someone who collects secret words, not someone who performs spirituality for others, but someone who directly knows the difference between the voice of the soul and the noise of the prison. That is Gnosis. Gnosis is not belief. It is not theory or borrowed doctrine. It is direct knowing. It is the moment the inner witness wakes up and sees the machinery of thought. It is the moment you realize that not every voice in your mind deserves your obedience. It is the moment you stop worshiping your fear as truth. There will be a moment, small, almost invisible, when a thought appears and you do not follow it. That moment is everything. That is the first crack. Not dramatic, not loud, but irreversible. Because once you see it once, you cannot fully go back. It begins simply. Observe the next thought that appears and simply watch it. Where did this come from? Does this thought carry peace, clarity, and truth? Or does it carry fear, shame, division, and compulsion? The moment you observe a thought, you are no longer fully possessed by it. The watcher has returned. The spark has moved. The prison has been seen. And a seen prison is already weaker than an unseen one. Then withdraw your energy from fear. This does not mean pretending darkness does not exist. It means refusing to feed it unconsciously. When fear rises, pause. Return to the present moment. Place your hand on your heart. Breathe slowly. Feel the body. Feel the ground. Feel the awareness behind the panic. Take back your attention. The Archons control attention because attention shapes reality. Where your attention goes, your life force flows. Guard it. Protect it. Do not offer it to every outrage, every distraction, every false urgency, every manufactured conflict. Your attention is not cheap. Your attention is creative power. It is the doorway through which reality enters your soul. This is why the modern world fights so hard to capture it. Every screen, every headline, every argument, every endless feed is a hook. Not every hook is archonic in name, but every unconscious hook can serve the prison. To awaken is to choose where your light goes. The Gnostic method is not escape from the world. It is escape from unconsciousness. It is learning to live in the world without letting the world own your mind. It is seeing systems without becoming hatred, seeing deception without becoming paranoia, seeing darkness without forgetting the light. Because the divine spark is not fragile. It is buried, but not broken. Hidden, but not gone. Quiet, but not dead. Every time you remember source, the false architecture loses authority. And this is not only personal. When one person awakens, a pattern breaks. When many awaken, a timeline shifts. The collective field changes when enough individuals stop feeding the same illusions. A civilization built on fear cannot survive masses of people who no longer worship fear. A system built on distraction cannot control those who have reclaimed attention. A prison built inside the mind cannot hold those who have remembered the light behind the mind. This is what the Archons fear. Not anger, not rebellion without awareness, not another outer war. They fear remembrance. They fear the human being who can stand inside the storm and say, "This thought is not my master. This fear is not my God. This world is not the limit of what I am." But the spark would remain. It would whisper beneath exhaustion. It would ache beneath distraction. It would appear as a strange feeling that something is wrong with the world you are told to accept. That feeling is not madness. It is memory. It is the first crack in the veil. And once the crack appears, light begins to enter. So the path is simple, but not easy. The Gnostic liberation method. The Archons can manipulate the mind, but they cannot own the witness behind it. Because real Gnosis is alive. It burns without permission. It rises without approval. It does not ask the prison to open. It realizes the door was hidden inside consciousness all along. And when enough people remember this, the invisible prison begins to crumble. Not all at once, not with thunder, not with a final battle in the sky. It crumbles every time someone refuses to feed fear. Every time someone remembers, "I am not the cage. I am the light that sees the cage." That is the beginning of liberation. That is the secret the Gnostics buried. That is the truth the Archons never wanted humanity to reclaim. Hidden in scrolls, symbols, and whispers, the Gnostics left a warning that refused to die. a signal carried across centuries for a moment like this. They did not speak of chains, because the Archons do not rule with chains. They rule with forgetfulness. They rule with the stories you were handed before you could question them. They rule with the thoughts that pass through your mind without ever being examined. And today something changed, because you have seen the game. Not completely, not perfectly, but enough to break the illusion of innocence. The invisible prison only works if you believe in it. It only holds if you never turn around to see it. And every time you return to awareness, every time you pause and question the voice in your head, every time you refuse to feed fear, chaos, and distraction, a bar of that prison dissolves. Quietly, invisibly, irreversibly. This is how the system breaks. Not in one moment, but in 1,000 acts of seeing. And maybe this is why you are here. Not by accident, not by chance. Because something deep within you has been stirring. Something older than your name, older than your memories, older than this lifetime. A part of you that never fully forgot. A part of you that recognizes truth when it feels it. That is remembrance. That is the spark beginning to rise. The Gnostics believe that when enough of these sparks awaken, the Archons lose their power. The false systems begin to collapse. The illusions weaken. The veil that once felt solid starts to lift, and reality reveals itself in a way that cannot be controlled by distortion anymore. So, this was never just about learning a secret. This was about becoming the proof of it, living it, embodying it, walking through the world with eyes that can see through the pattern without being consumed by it. And now there is only one question left, a question that cannot be answered with borrowed words. If every thought is not truly yours, then who are you beneath the noise? Sit with that, feel it, let it unsettle you. Let it open something deeper, because once you begin to remember, once you stop identifying with the voice and start recognizing the awareness behind it, everything changes. Not instantly, but permanently. If this shifted something inside you, stay with it and do not let it fade. Go deeper with us and continue uncovering what was hidden beneath the noise. Subscribe now and step beyond the illusion with those who are beginning to remember, because the more you see, the less this illusion can hold you, and this is only the beginning of what you are about to discover.